What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. It is Monday, October 2nd. My name is Ewan. On today's episode, we're going to get into some F1 fantasy with a Qatar Grand Prix preview, a little bit of a Japanese review here, looking at some swings in the points, some strategy coming up. There's only 6 races left in the season, so 6 more race previews. It's going to come down to the wire. Japan did not go well for me personally, but I know it went great for some other people. So let's just get right into it here with a little episode content. So what we got coming up: Japanese Grand Prix review, swings at Suzuka, Qatar Grand Prix preview. We're going to follow the data. We're going to look at Carlos versus Checo, maybe go through some of my transfers this week. And then the schedule. While we are here at the top, though, I would love it if you could like and subscribe to the channel. Just short of 100 subscribers right now. Would love to get that before the race kicks off this weekend. Sprint race this weekend in Qatar. So it's going to be action-packed, 3 straight days of racing, 3 straight days of fantasy points available. So lots to get into. So yeah. Follow me on Twitter at UNOUOut and just like and subscribe to the channel. Would really appreciate that help out there. But let's get into what happened in Japan just a couple of weekends ago. Max and Red Bull got back on track, took pole, and won the race. Oscar Piastri qualified second, Lando Norris third, Charles Leclerc fourth, and Sergio Perez fifth. Needless to say, Sergio Perez did not end up there on race day. Several crashes, retired, came back out, retired again just to avoid a penalty in Qatar this weekend. Smart by Red Bull. Pretty sure that loophole has already been locked up by the FIA, so that won't be happening again. But yeah, Max came back storming in fantastic fashion with a very strong weekend. But McLaren, very good as well. Lando got ahead of Oscar eventually. Oscar with his first podium of his young F1 career. So good job by him. But 5 DNFs on Sunday: Alexander Albon, Logan Sargent, Lance Stroll, Sergio Perez, and Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, it was kind of carnage out there, but we're going to get into that a little bit more here. Some Japanese Grand Prix facts and stats. The optimal team was Ferrari and McLaren, with Verstappen as your ×2 driver. Piastri, Norris, Leclerc, Alonso. That would have bagged you 329 points. Positions gained: Zhou Guanyu, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hulkenberg with 6, 5, and 4 respectively there. Overtakes: Fernando Alonso with 9, and then Nico Hulkenberg and Lance Stroll with 6. And the fastest pit stop was Ferrari, taking 15 of the 18 available points. So they had 15. AlphaTauri had 3. So pretty good weekend for the Tifosi overall there. Piastri gets his podium. He was driver of the day, qualified second, finished third. So he did lose a position on Sunday, but had 2 overtakes. And the driver of the day award got him to 35 points, which is a new season high for the rookie. His 2.40 points per million over the last 3 races is the best value on the grid. He's now been more valuable than Carlos Sainz over the last 3. So Oscar is at 2.4 and Carlos Sainz is at 1.83. My team here, it did not go well. I had 2 free transfers. I used them. I wish I had not. I did Carlos Sainz to Sergio Perez, and I did Alexander Albon to Logan Sargent. It was a huge swing and sunk me 4 days. Perez with -11, Logan Sargent -21 after he crashed in qualifying without setting the time. That is a new season low in the game, -21 points. That has not happened to any other driver in the game. Max Verstappen came through with 94 points, Lando Norris 31, Oscar Piastri 35. Bright side, I think I did all right getting the McLaren in there, 66, but the entire week leading up, I was kind of leaning Carlos, even going with double Ferrari as a constructor. And then woke up Saturday morning nice and early to check free practice 3. Saw that Sergio had a really strong free practice 3 result and totally tilted me into just going with this boring lineup that I hate, and it is now here. So my ranks sank from inside the top 35K. I went down about 4,000 spots. So not great, Bob. I know a lot of people I was point 0.1 short of going to Yuki instead of Logan Sargent, and that was brutal. I could have gone with Liam Lawson, but let's just get into it here. Swings at Suzuka. This is what I said after the race on Sunday on Twitter/X, whatever we're calling it these days. I'm expecting a massive rank drop this week due to the huge swings in F1 fantasy after the Japanese Grand Prix. And that was the provisional points that I just had right after the race. But right here on the right side of the screen, I have added up what the kind of point swings were. I was trying to find the overall rank, but unfortunately the F1.com site only does the top 500 in the global, so I couldn't really figure out where my rank would have been if I had scored this amount of points, so apologies there. But Carlos Sainz plus Liam Lawson would have scored you 23 points. Sergio Perez plus Yuki Tsunoda would have scored you -9 points. And if you went with what I went with, Sergio Perez plus Logan Sargent, you scored -32 points. So I was looking at the Carlos Sainz, Liam Lawson package, and that would have been a 55-point swing. Whew, that is going to hurt come the end of the season. But congrats to everyone that went with the correct pairing here with Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson, along with Verstappen, Norris, Piastri. Even saw some people go with Sainz and Ferrari, just crushing it. So it was one of the swingiest weekends of the season so far. There's still 6 races left, still some time to make up some room there, but it's gonna be tough. That was a big swing and it hurt. So yeah, I guess comment below about how your team did in Japan. Was it as poor as mine with my 240 points? Were you one of the people that had double Ferrari? Did you have Carlos and Liam? So just let me know below. Want to see some success to get me out of how poor I did this weekend here. Data dump here. Just kind of checking in on the stats. I haven't done it for a couple of weeks here. So just going through the last 3 races. So best points per race over the last 3. Verstappen's top here with 36.7. Sainz in second. Hamilton third. Piastri fourth. And Norris fifth. So a lot of us F1 fantasy managers have 4 of those 5. Best points per million over the last 3 is Piastri, Sainz, Norris, Verstappen, and Zhou Guanyu. So that's interesting there. I mentioned Piastri there is 2.4. That leads the entire grid. Sainz 1.83, Norris 1.50, Verstappen 1.27, and Zhou Guanyu 1.23. The worst points per race over the last 3, Yuki Tsunoda here with -11.7 points after his back-to-back DNFs. He did finish the race at his home race in Japan last weekend, but the 2 races before that finished with did not finish. He DNF'd twice. Valtteri Bottas in second here with -9. Esteban Ocon, -7. Logan Sargent pictured here, kind of holding his head, -4 points per race. And Lance Stroll here with -2.3. And the worst points per million last 3, Tsunoda, -2.1. Bottas, Sargent, Ocon, and Stroll. So kind of a pretty big swing there. A lot of us earlier in the year were going between Joe and Tsunoda. So it has been tough for if you got Joe, you've probably gotten a pretty good bump there as well. But Tsunoda did well in Japan, but was not a viable asset in F1 Fantasy the 2 weekends before that. How many of these guys do you have in your lineup? Would love to know. I only have 3 of those best points per race guys, 3 of the best points per million guys. And unfortunately, I do have Logan Sargent in my lineup, and that is going to cost me. So let me know below. Race info here for the Qatar Grand Prix. The Lusail International Circuit, 5.4 .418 kilometers long, 57 laps, 16 corners, one DRS zone, and it's only the second time it's ever raced here. It came on the calendar at the back end of 2021, which was still a COVID-affected season, but this begins a 10-year contract with the circuit to be on the F1 calendar. So we're going to see this for the next decades. Drivers say they like it, the high-speed corners. It's going to be interesting with the new regulations. It was not on the calendar last season, so we've only had this with the regulations before 2022. So certainly something to watch, see how these new cars or the new regulations kind of go around this track. 2021 results is kind of the only thing we have to go on here. Lewis Hamilton took pole, finished first in that epic title fight that I'm sure a lot of us remember. Valtteri Bottas was up there in qualifying in third with DNF, but Fernando Alonso got on the podium there, finishing fifth in qualifying and then third in the race. Not a ton to gain here. I guess Lewis likes the track, did quite well there, but the cars are totally different now. And it's going to be a quick turnaround for the practice to the qualifying here because it is a sprint weekend. So the schedule is kind of tight. So Friday, we've got free practice 1, qualifying on Friday night, and then straight into the Saturday sprint Saturday with the sprint shootout in the morning or the afternoon and sprint at night. The first ever night sprint. So that will be interesting. Sunday is the Grand Prix. But with it being a sprint weekend, that means the qualifying is a unusual Friday lock. So lineup locks this week are going to be at 8 p.m. local time, 6 p.m. British time, and 1 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you set your clock. Do not get caught out by this early lock. It's 6 races to go. We need to be on our best behavior and keep everything tight to not miss any lineup locks. Let's just check the weather here for a second. Go to Doha. Give me 1 second here. Here we go. So right now, so Thursday is going to be 105. Friday, it's going to be 105. Saturday, it's going to be 104. And Sunday, it's going to be 102. So it is going to be hot this weekend. It's unfortunate that we don't get 2 free practices because with some dry practices, we could really get some good data for these tracks. And that would be fantastic for, oh, there we go. Done that again. For our chances of kind of guessing who's going to be really good at this. We're especially trying to, with so many people trying to get their chips in. So with 6 races left, like limitless chip, extra DRS boost, all that data would be very handy. And that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit today here. So I had this idea over the break that I always look at these on Friday, the practice debriefs on F1.com. They're really, really handy. Lawrence Barretto writes them up usually. Sometimes other people step in. But it gives us qualifying simulation pace, race simulation pace, ideal order, all that's just some like really nice tidbits for our F1 fantasy team. So I would highly recommend reading this whenever possible. Unfortunately, it's not going to apply to the next 2 races because those are 2 sprint races, and we're not going to get this article in time for our qualifying. But on normal Grand Prix weekends, this is very, very handy to have. So what I did over this last 2 weeks, I kind of went back and I went to every practice debrief for the season for 2023, and I wrote down the top 3 that Lawrence Barretto had in his data pack, and I kind of broke down the numbers. So they have a qualifying analysis and a race analysis. So this is what they did here. So out of the 45 times that they gave us qualifying data on the practice debrief, they guessed the top 3 for qualifying, the top 3 teams for qualifying 33 out of 45 times. So 73.3%. They guessed the top 3 in the exact correct order 35.6% of the time, 16 of the 45 times. For the races, they guessed the top 3 in any correct order 24 out of the 33 times, 72.7%. And then they guessed the top 3 teams in the exact order 17 out of 33 times. So just so I can explain that there. So if they guessed, or not guessed, but in their data, if they found that like Red Bull was fastest, Ferrari was second fastest, and Aston Martin was third. If in qualifying it ended up being Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, I gave them credit for that for the top 3 correct in any order. And if it was in another race, if it was Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, and they got Mercedes, and then it ended up Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, then they got credit for an exact order. So that's kind of how I broke down that data. I just wanted to illustrate the point that it's a free resource. It's right there at our fingertips. And with 6 races left, 3 of them are sprints, but 3 of them are not. So it's definitely something to rely on going into a normal Grand Prix weekend. They kind of had that in Monza. People that played the Limitless chip there made great gains. So good job by them. They even kind of gave it away in Singapore as well. Although they did have Red Bull as one of the better race paces, but qualifying was just a disaster. They couldn't make it up. And then last weekend as well in Japan, they even touted Ferrari, Carlos Sainz doing really well, Charles Leclerc doing really well, and Sergio Perez not doing so well. So if I had listened to that, I would not be in this 7,500 rank hole that I currently find myself in. Checo versus Carlos is going to be a massive debate this weekend. Sainz has outdriven Checo in the second half of the year. It's plain and simple. Some stats here. I've got total points, points per race for the last 3, points per million for the last 3, and most points in a single race in the second half. Checo leads in total points 458 to 298. Points per race over the last 3. Sainz 33.7, Perez 11.7. Points per million over the last 3. Sainz 1.83. Checo 0.60, and then most points in a single race in the second half. Perez with 30 twice in the Netherlands and Monza, and Sainz with 45 in Singapore. So you can see here over the last 3 races, Sainz has outperformed Perez over 3 times as well, and he's 0.5 million less right now. So Sergio is 20.3 and Carlos is 19.9. So it's a pretty big decision on who we're going to go with this weekend. So I'm just going to go to my transfers here. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to get over here real quick. I'm just going to double check that it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, that's fine. That's perfect. Alrighty, so here's the current lineup that I have that I'm not a huge fan of, but simple thing is I got 2 free transfers. If I don't want to get Sergio in there, Carlos in leaves me with 5.6 million. Do I love it? No, but I would be choosing between Nico Hulkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda, and Logan Sargent. It definitely would not be Logan Sargent. With how hot it's going to be, Haas could struggle, but they could pick up points in the sprint. They had a daring strategy the last time out. I think they both finished in the points. So that's something to consider with the sprint weekend coming along. Haas could do better in a sprint race than AlphaTauri, but it would come down to Yuki Tsunoda or Nico Hulkenberg for me there. The other option would be I bring Sergio back in. I would still have 5.2, and that only leaves me with Logan Sargent. So that is a bummer. So I pretty much have to get Sergio out of my lineup. Or I can go here. I can go Ferrari, and I get 10.3 back. That gives me a lot of options as well. Zhou Guan Yu's there, K-Mag, Alexander Albon. Pretty much most of the back markers plus Bottas, Albon, and K-Mag. With the high-speed corners, it could be an interesting track for Williams. I don't hate how that looks. It could be pretty positive. Gonna keep the triple McLaren, gonna keep Max. But yeah, if I don't want to get if Red Bull looks good, if Ferrari looks good, maybe this is the way to go with getting some Ferrari exposure. But I do not want to trust Checo at all. He was so bad in Japan. It was like everyone knows what happened there. So could go Carlos here. I mean, Mercedes. If Mercedes looks good in FP1, then it could be time to activate the limitless chip because that's something that would be very interesting. Kind of shoot me back up there. But yeah, so lots of uh, things to kind of get on there, but it's gonna be the races are gonna start coming thick and fast. We've got this race here this weekend, and then we have a triple header. Yes, you heard me, a triple header. Austin Grand Prix, Mexican Grand Prix, and then the Brazilian Grand Prix. And two of those three races are sprints. So we've got back-to-back sprint races, and then we've got triple headers as well. Next three of the next four races are going to be sprints. So definitely something to monitor coming up here. But if you are an attentive manager, you're going to shoot up the ranks. Some people are going to get caught out here with how many races there are coming in the next month. Like it is October 2nd today. So then we got 4 races coming in the next 4 or 5 weekends. So 5 weekends. So definitely keep an eye out on this channel and just F1 in general, because there's going to be a ton of races. Lineup locks. This is the last time I want to say this. Lineups lock on Friday, October 6th, local time 8 p.m., UK time 6 p.m., and the US Eastern time at 1 p.m. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of Backup Fantasy Sports and the Qatar Grand Prix Preview. So much to get into, so little time. The sprint is kind of throwing a wrench in everything. I would love a normal Grand Prix weekend to kind of try and bounce back, figure out chip strategy. If Red Bull looks strong, it could be a great weekend to use extra DRS boost on Max. So I would definitely think about that. Limitless chip might want more data. It's going to be tough. But there will be, you can definitely follow me on Twitter at @UNORUOut. I'll be tweeting about anything that comes from practices or the weekend warm up that F1.com will put out there on their website this weekend. But yeah, once again, thanks for listening, but I'm just going to plead one last time. Like and subscribe to the channel. Would really appreciate it. Trying to get to the triple digits by race weekend. And you can follow me on Twitter or X at @UNORUOut. But now, once again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.